it'll start to connect and then the connection will immediately crash. And I'm not clear on why that's happening. It's acting like it's having bandwidth problems, but it usually kicks in after a few tries. I don't know if the engine just is slow to warm up or what, but fortunately I'm extremely dumb and I don't know how computers work, so I can't really do anything to fix it. But yeah, that's pretty much it. We are live. Hey everybody, how's it going? I'm back. I'm gonna read a comic book, and I've got somebody here to help me out. Say hello, Ixie.
Yep, me again.
Yeah,
Yeah, I have
it's
no idea what to do with audio equipment like that either. It's a mystery to me.
well, that's too bad because I just hired you to be my tech person, so you better learn quick. But this week we are going to be reading Far Sector by N.K. Jemisin, which I guess is a Green Lantern thing. And have you been reading Green Lantern by Morrison at all, Ix? Ix is muted. All right, we'll give Ix a minute.
Yes, I have read Green Lantern
Yay.
1 to 12 by Morrison and have very mixed feelings about that, which is kind of its whole tangent of itself.
Go for it. That's kind of what we do here.
Really short version is that I loved it for the first few issues where it felt like it was actually doing the whole Morrison nonsense space cop stuff.
Right.
And then it just seemed to randomly be a different comic every other issue.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess the early issues were also about a different thing every time. It's just that they were all sort of within a more limited overarching structure of the space cop thing. But you're right, that is kind of go to some weird places later on.
We'd have to start looking at specific examples to dig into that, but it mostly just felt like after about 3 issues, the other stuff seemed like either it was part of an arc that never quite came together, or it was some random thing that felt like it didn't really have anything to do with the rest of the comic.
Yeah, well, and there's also some pretty deep pulls in there, like the lead female Dark Star lady is related to the villain of Final Crisis. So there's a lot of context there that I think would be hard to appreciate if you hadn't read that series. And I was
Have
a little
read
thought.
Final Crisis, but I was completely unaware of anything like that.
Well, do you remember? I think it's Mandrak.
No, I don't know this.
So yeah, Mandrak was a former Monitor who became like a spooky monster vampire, and it gets really complicated because he plays a pretty significant role in the very end of Final Crisis, but most of the explanation of his whole deal actually comes up in a 3D Superman comic that was a tie-in to Final Crisis. And I have no idea if that's even included in the trades or not.
Talking about what I think you're talking about, there were definitely Superman issues in the Final Crisis trade that I read.
Yeah. Okay, well
Weirdly, I
that's
think
good.
that was the best part of the trade that I read.
Yeah. So there was Mandrak the Dark Monitor, and he uh did vampire stuff, and then Superman sang at him, and then he went away.
Oh, that's who Mandrak was.
Yeah, and the lady in Morrison's Green Lantern is his daughter, as I understand it.
Huh. Okay, sure.
Well, it just adds a connection to the larger Morrison DC story, I guess, which is something that he's always kind of flirted with here and there. But anyway, I don't think that this actually is going to tie into Morrison Lantern at all, from what I've read about it anyway.
Definitely did not appear to get referenced anywhere in Morrison's run that I saw.
Yeah. Did you read Naomi?
I have not read any Naomi yet.
I have not either. I've been meaning to pick up the trade.
The closest I've gotten is reading the first volume of Young Justice, but Naomi's not even in that series until later.
Yeah. The art stuff that I saw looked pretty good, and I like this cover a lot.
I'm digging this cover, but I want to know more
Yeah.
about who this character is and what she's doing.
Limited palette, and the glow on her hand is kind of interesting. I haven't really seen that. More of a white than a green.
And I'm curious how much of that is actual, that's how her ring works, and how much of that is a cosmetic choice for the cover.
Sure. Well, I guess we'll have to find out. But all in all, I would say this is a pretty promising opening. I'm very curious about this DC's young animal thing at the bottom, though. Like ages 17 and up. That's pretty. What are we getting into here?
Yeah, I have no idea how the imprints work at this point. The young animal seems to be on a handful of random series that I'm not sure what the connection is, other than they all
Well,
crossed over once.
and don't forget about Black Label.
Yeah, that I'm even more confused about. That seems to just mean whatever editorial feels like it means every other week.
Well, it seems to be the one where they can swear, and it used to be that they could also show Batman's penis, but they got rid of that. So I don't know anymore.
That was all weird.
This is quite nice. A man who makes trouble for others is also making it for himself. Chinua Achebe. Things fall apart. Two little problems with that quote applied to this situation. All right, that's a good ass hand. I really am digging the colors. And the reflection in the water in particular is really impressively done. You get the sense of a lot happening there. Like this is really difficult to do well, and most of the comics that I read don't even bother, but this is just really doing a lot of very hard, very subtle work very well, in my opinion.
I feel like I'm supposed to be trying to figure out what's in the reflection, but that
Looks
may
like
just
a
be because I'm staring at the same page for a long time. But
looks like a building to me.
it probably is just a building.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got what appears to be a human hand, and then something that's what, a giant bat wing? What is that?
I don't think that's supposed to be a human hand. I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hands.
Oh, wait.
Non-standard. That is a
Oh, you're right.
non-standard number of fingers, and the blood is
I missed
also.
that.
Yeah.
I totally missed that.
What can I say? I'm detail oriented. Also, I see the edge of what I'm guessing is like a wing. Seems wing-like to me.
Yeah, that's what I was focusing on. Is what? Yeah, we'll probably know on the next page what that's a wing of.
Yeah. So have you read Things Fall Apart?
I have not.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Actually, it got name checked on this week's episode of Watchmen. I don't know, or was it last week's? I think it was last week's. Yeah, it was last week's episode of Watchmen. Did you ever manage to check that out?
I have seen 4 episodes of Watchmen. I haven't seen the 5th one yet. I'm not
Mm.
sure. Are you talking about the 5th one?
I'm talking about the fourth one when Angela has a chat with her husband about Agent Blake's visit.
Okay, I just don't remember this coming up, but
Yeah,
yeah, I
the
probably
boy,
just had no idea that phrase meant anything specific.
Angela's husband is reading Things Fall Apart.
Oh,
It's it's a classic in Black literature.
okay.
But let's push on, shall we? Oh, this is quite nice.
This is a style.
I'm digging this a lot. First, in this case, the trouble isn't just mono e mono. Whole cities are going to feel this. Second, I'm the one causing the trouble just by existing. Space sector, some number nobody ever bothered to tell me. Far. The farthest of the Guardian's 3,600 sectors, maybe farther. Maybe it doesn't have a number. I'd heard, but didn't believe. Platform Ever Forward. Yes, that's a name. Is it too much to hope you folks have assault specialized forensics? Wait, of course you don't. You don't have assaults. Okay, I am really digging the art here.
Yeah, this is one of those styles that I feel like I want to get this now so I can get the proper high res version, but I I feel like I've seen styles that do similar things to this where there's a large region of essentially one color and it comes off as kind of simplistic, but here like all the you can still see all the contours on her cloak and everything even though it's mostly just the one shade of green. This one really works for me.
Yeah, and you also have a lot of nice little details like the highlights on the cloak and
Rain
the
every and the rain effects everywhere are still on point.
yeah, like this rain is an interesting contrast to the rain that we saw in Batman's Grave, which 100% did not work for me and I did not like, but this is really selling the mood and the just sogginess of the whole thing. And there's even a little bit of like spritzing on her hair and on the little force fields that the alien robo dudes have.
Oh
So
yeah, you're right. There is.
yeah, really subtle, but I think does a nice job of selling the
Umbrella, whatever we want to call it.
yeah, the dampness of the experience. Yeah, and there's a really fun bit of alien cityscape in the background, which
I like
manages
that they
to
bothered to draw all that.
well, not just that, but they also managed to go to the trouble to use unusual shapes and angles to sell just how totally foreign and otherworldly this place is. So you have like the giant weird orbs and the weird stuff that's jutting out and the crosswork lighting and just a lot of things that you don't really see in an Earth skyline. And that's even ignoring obvious things like the hover cars or the uh
Hexagon sky, which
he-
I assume means they're in some kind of artificial weatherscape.
right. I mean that there's a lot of work being packed into this panel, and it really pays off in my opinion.
Also curious about these other two figures in the bottom panel, like what their clothing is clearly like there's bits of Earth clothing it resembles, and there's also a lot of stuff that's just I don't what even is that?
Yeah.
To mention what the guy in the bottom right is doing, I have no idea what this guy's doing with that thing.
Which thing? It looks like somebody is throwing up and somebody else is holding him.
Oh, I see it now. Yeah, okay. Never mind, that makes sense.
All right. And there's some good touches here too. The acting on her face is really nicely subtle. She's just a little frustrated and upset in the first panel, and then there's a lot of that same energy coming through, but also a little bit of concern in the second one as she checks out the reaction of, I guess this is Platform Ever Forward, which is a super weird name, but I guess the sort of name that you wouldn't be totally shocked to hear an alien robo dude have. But all in all, first few pages, good stuff.
Let's continue.
Or maybe, oh no, Platform Ever Forward is the name of the place, so that makes more sense.
Yeah,
Platform,
that was my first guess too, but
yeah,
I wanted to get to the next page.
all right. Platform, think of it as a burrow. This one's Manhattan ish, forward thinking. Get it? What have you got then? What? For forensics. You do have property crimes here. Somebody has to know how to dust for prints, roots, whatever. Send the forensics people to me first. Maybe I can give them a few tips on how to handle a violent crime scene. The first murder in 500 ish years means we're all going to have to improvise, I'm guessing. Wait, what should the body? None of us have any idea how to handle this. If such crimes are common on your world, pretty common, yeah, but I can't tell you much. See, this is my first murder investigation, too. What I do know is when forensics is done and you're sure of the ID, notify the next of kin. All right. So, more alien stuff in the first one. Kind of a weird choice here to pull back to what's really more of an establishing shot, but I guess what they're trying to do is show that they have a big crowd of onlookers overhead checking this out.
That's part of it. I think it's also just to sync with the fact that she's doing narration about this is the place we're in now,
Yeah.
and that's just a panel where she does that. And if to me, it makes perfect sense to do that narration after the initial "Oh God, there's a dead body here" bit.
Yeah, I suppose. And we've got some, I guess, Green Lantern bubbles that are covering up the scene of the crime so they can try to
Yeah,
maintain the evidence.
yeah, that's what I figured she was doing.
Yeah, that's a nice touch. And the alien in the bottom left hand panel is clearly pretty wigged. I'm not a big fan of the outlining. I hope that's not like an artistic choice, but it's just an indication of something about this particular alien. Because there are some artists who like to outline their characters, which always kind of drives me up the wall.
Yeah, I've noticed that so far they've only done the noticeable white outline on these aliens in the whatever this garment is called.
Yeah,
It's not happening on her. It's not happening on any of the people in the crowd in the top panel there. So it might be just them.
yeah. And again, I don't want to belabor the point, but the similarity to Batman's Grave is really interesting, in as much as that I feel like that was covering something similar in terms of mood and visuals. Like, obviously, this is an alien city, but they're both dealing with characters at night, working with sort of this moody noir thing with some colorful lights here and there. But to me, this is selling it a lot stronger, particularly in the bottom right hand panel where you have
Yeah,
her walking into
because
and
especially in the Batman's Grave, the most common, at least the one that I wouldn't shut up about, was that all of the cityscape backgrounds are really washed out. It
yeah.
sort of felt like they were a layer below the stuff you were supposed to actually be looking at. And here, the only part where it even comes close to being washed out is that last panel where it's clearly an intentional change in lighting that matches with her walking away.
And not only that, but walking away into a very bright light source,
Yeah.
which is basically overpowering everything. So yeah, it's kind of fascinating, and I suspect that the gonna jump back real quick. I suspect that this artist is also doing the colors. Like I think it's a it, and my guess is that that's why this work is much stronger. I've noticed pretty consistently actually that you tend to see a lot more striking uh, material from people who are doing all the work themselves.
I remember when I was first getting into comics wondering why they, because I was so used to the way manga did, I was surprised to hear that inker and penciler and colorist and everything were all separate roles. And I was like, how the hell do they coordinate that?
Well, manga does actually do that for some stuff. It's just that they don't necessarily announce it. Manga comics can have as many as like 8 different people working on a title. Artists, I mean.
Okay, I must have
But
only heard the anecdotes, production anecdotes from the people that don't do that.
yeah, it's not universal, but there's lots of people who do that, and I don't know if the labor is necessarily divided up the same way. I think that there's at least some comics where somebody does the figures and then another person does the backgrounds.
Yeah, that would make more sense.
But there are a lot of people who do work. I think one of the things that's fairly common is that they have somebody do the at least the drawing and inking, and then somebody else handles what's called the screen tones. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so that's like a whole other thing. But yeah, no, it's manga's a team effort too. And to be clear, I mean there are comics that do absolutely beautiful work that have, one person on pencils, one person on inks, and one person on colors. It's just that I think it's harder to get better results and that they need to be more in communication and more in sync with each other as a result.
Yeah, they don't. They're not as easy to split up and do in parallel as, say, writing and art are.
Right, for sure. All right. There was more I could have told him, her, them. I'm here to help, after all. But sometimes help means letting people learn from experience. And this city, 20 billion citizens deep, is just going to have to get used to this because I'm pretty sure it won't be the last time somebody dies ugly in the city enduring. All right. And I am not usually a big fan of epic space vistas in comics, but this one is pretty nice, I have to admit.
I agree. This is. Yeah, I agree that a lot of the time it just comes off as here's a cool thing and a lot of black stuff around it. But yeah, this is nice.
Yeah. And like
This
I think
actually sells the scale. Like,
not just the scale again, like the sort of nebula-ish effect going on in the background, and the
with
stars coming off is
yeah, with
very light, and I don't know
these
what this
multiple
Dyson
asteroids.
sphere. Yeah, I don't know
Yeah,
what
we've
this.
got the obvious construct in the bottom right with all these different layers and orbits, and then there's also these shooting stars in the background. There's this belt of stars. There's these asteroid belts. There's what looks like half a moon or something, and two or
Yeah,
three spaceships out here, and what I'm guessing are some kind of wormholes they're coming out of. I'm not either that or they all just blew up. But
I think it's just supposed to be like a lens flare type thing,
oh well.
but I'm digging it.
I think my only question is where exactly were the other pages relative to this? Like, are they in the middle of this sphere? Are they on one of those hexagons? But I assume that'll be obvious soon.
Well, I don't. What's so? Let's see. Dyson spheres. My guess is that they're on the hexagons, right? Which would make sense because they had that hexagon skyline.
Yeah, that would make sense.
But it's been a while. I'm not entirely sure where you're supposed to hang out when you're living on a Dyson sphere, but maybe the.
I don't know that I feel like a Dyson sphere isn't necessarily a habitat place as well. Not to mention, this is obviously not a complete sphere.
Right. Well, let's keep reading.
I'll assume they're on the hexagons for now.
1 hour to teach these people what little I know of forensics. Another to talk the police chief. Sorry, peace captain down from Panic. Sorry, Panic. Hey, aren't you lanterns supposed to be able to fly? Yeah. Just didn't feel like it today. The sky is not real. Each day, the city builds a new composite sky image from its citizens' imaginations. It's projected across what's basically a big theater screen made of, I don't know, fancy future tech, keeps out solar radiation, particulates, all the stuff that kills people. Ready? Citizen of the Cliffs by the streaking ice. Yes, all of that is her name. No. Can't get over this place. It's mad wild. Anywhere else, a murder means interrogating witnesses, lining up suspects. Meanwhile, the brass handle the politics. Citizens figuring out the procedure of the politics? Well, that's me now. I'm the brass. Yay. All right. Not a huge fan of the panel composition here.
Yeah, I do feel like this confused me a little bit, or at least wasn't as I feel like it's not really accomplishing much.
Well, it's, I think, it's pointing us obviously toward this big floaty thingamajig. So
Yeah, but like it could have been straighter and less jagged and stuff, and still made the job. Still had a big right hand vertical panel for this thing.
yeah, I don't know. I tend to be fairly conservative about my panel work. I get suspicious if people get too fancy.
I really like fancy paneling, but it's hard to do it well because it's really easy to just make it unclear what order you're supposed to read the panels in, or it feels like there's no reason for them to be weird.
Sure.
But then there's
Have
stuff
you?
like the Batwoman comics are probably my favorite example of unconventional paneling that really works.
Oh, yeah, that's what I was going to mention. All right. Yeah, so you are familiar. Good.
That's everyone's favorite example, isn't it?
It's pretty solid. But let's see what this place is. Full trilogy council on deck, huh? This should be fun. That's what the people here call themselves in Moss. The trilogy. The ongoing story in the city enduring. The three races of the trilogy are called the Na, the At, pronounced at, don't laugh. I'm not sure how I feel about that. Yes, I am. I don't like it. And the Ketopli. These are their, well, not rulers exactly. Representatives? Supreme Court? It's complicated. Everything's complicated here. All right. So, like, yeah, I don't know. The at, that's gonna be a no for me, dog.
Yeah, I do find it weird transliterating alien languages into punctuation symbols like that. That's super weird, and that it's not plausible that they would have a direct equivalent of a particular punctuation mark that would make that the appropriate transliteration.
Well, what's bugging me about it is that I could be wrong, but the way it's coming off to me right now is that it's a riff on these crazy online millennials,
Okay, I didn't want to go there, but I see what you mean.
which is, well, I mean, with the hair and the sort of bored, insouciant posture and the hollow vitting while in the middle of a meeting.
The
I
future
think
smartphone in her hand, yeah.
it comes off as like, check out this space teenager, and I don't know if that's actually
But
where
yeah,
this is going. They have
no, yeah,
not
I totally got it.
they have not done enough work to sort of file off the serial numbers on this particular reference for my tastes. But I don't know, maybe I'm wrong.
It is just one panel. I can give him more than one panel the benefit of the doubt there.
Yeah. I do like
See what you're seeing there, though, yeah.
I do like this building, the this whole spherical thing and the stairs leading down to the council table.
Yeah,
And I mean,
I like the arches and the other circles and spheres and shapes going on here, and the use of gold and stuff. Like it feels like there's a distinct art style going on here that doesn't line up to anything I'm familiar with from Earth, so it sells it for me.
yeah,
And it's different from the exterior skyline.
even the table is like weird and alien too. There's a
Yeah, the
remarkable
stuff
amount of
under it.
care, yeah, being dedicated to just trying to make this feel like a really vibrant place with a history that is not like Earth history.
Yeah, this is the kind of stuff I'm really looking for in sci-fi whatever medium. Is you've got to sell me on the world not just being Earth with some rubber forehead people. It's got to be more interesting than that.
Sure. It's also kind of weird though, because like so far none of these three aliens really seem that much like the droidish people that she was talking to at the crime scene. Maybe those are AT-ATs. I don't know.
Or maybe there's some totally different thing, or maybe they're just straight up robots. Like I
Well,
assume they will tell us at some point.
I I don't know why you would program a robot to vomit at a crime scene, but
Okay, that's a fair point.
yeah, maybe they
Maybe
thought
it's
it
a
was.
maybe it's a
Maybe they thought it was.
synthetic android. Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe they're replicants.
Yeah, maybe it's a yeah replicants. That's probably the better word. Let's go with that.
Ah, the human and peace, Captain Sisson. At last, we've been anxious for a full report. The report is no chairs. Sigh. Lift. Damn it. Not
Oh
sure
boy,
how.
the ring's malfunctioning.
I don't think the ring is malfunctioning actually,
That seems more like there's an entity in the ring or hanging out with her or something.
or some sort of psychological thing that's going on.
See. Actually, yeah, you're right. If the guy didn't notice, it's more likely psychological. But
Well,
yeah,
no, he does.
onward.
He notices in the next one. Problem? No. Op? I think it's ambiguous, but something's going on.
Actually, yeah, you're right. It's ambiguous whether he's noticing the spliff or if he's noticing her noticing the spliff.
Yeah. Oh,
We'll
and
just refer to it as spliff until they tell us more.
I believe. Let me check. This is the first time we're getting a proper look at her costume.
Without the cloak on, yeah, I think it is.
It's a good costume, and this is really
Yeah.
cool. One of the things that you can do really easily with a superhero movie that is a lot harder to execute properly in a comic is the textural stuff. And I don't know if you can actually tell if you're just watching the stream, but there's a really subtle like screen tone effect on the blacks on her costume that really give it this like it makes it feel like it's a bunch of like really tiny small little stuff that's like connected to each other, kind of like the Raimi Spider-Man costume.
Oh, I am not seeing that at all.
Let's see if I can get you a better look at this.
I'm currently getting this on stream only. Like I am on the verge of just buying this myself, but I want to see a few more pages first before I commit.
All right, let me try my capture. Someday I'm gonna remember to actually set this up before I start. Capture. There's a hotkey for it. Let's see. Boop. Okay, so that should work. Let me just go ahead and pull up my source. There we go. So hopefully that's visible.
Oh, I see what you. Yeah, it's more in the grayish area. I can sort of see it there, but yeah, no,
Yeah,
I see
well,
what you mean.
yeah, which is, and that's actually a hallmark of textures, which is that they tend to get washed out either in shadow or extreme highlights. But in medium tones here, then this is where you would expect to see it. But from further away, when you're not like super zoomed in like this, it does make it feel like it's an actual costume made of like either maybe a rubbery type fabric,
Yeah,
but it's
and
got that
that is
sort of
something.
tactical feel to it.
Yeah, and that's something that was kind of in the back of my mind ever since we saw the cover, actually, because I've the only Green Lantern comics I've read before are Jeff Johns and Morrison's Green Lantern runs, which are basically just Hal Jordan, and his super suit, as far as I can tell, is just a ring construct. So it feels like it's just sort of a totally artificial, ethereal thing all the time. This feels
Right.
like it might have actually been constructed out of some real fabric.
Yeah.
Of
And
course, this design, like, it feels like it's made of pieces designed to go together into a garment in a way that you would never do it if your ring could just emit a costume in any shape.
yeah, I'm not like the only note I would have is that I'm not sure I love the mask slash glasses, but other than that, I think it's really outstanding.
Yeah, the mask immediately makes me think of, like, I should know what decade that's from. Like, I want to say 70s or 80s or something, but it feels retro in a weird way that in this alien planet sort of works.
Yeah. As I was saying, the report has been logged already. Read the details at your leisure. Also, let's try the Lantern Mullen instead of the human. Thanks. And you are nice little power pose at the end there. So let's find out who you are.
Exposition time.
Apologies. I should have introduced you both to my fellow counselors. This is the counselor for the at at Blaze of Glory. I hear she's one of the oldest and most powerful at-ats. Probably shouldn't have pissed her off. Oh well. Avarup Thorn of the Dry Season Thorns. So, the Avarup Thorn grew on the Catoples homeworld. If the thorns tagged a mammal, they traveled through the bloodstream, took root in an organ, popped out later. Messy. Not quite as dangerous as the Catople themselves. Lumir of the Cliffs by the Wavering Dark, the Trilogy Council's Seneschal. Seneschal. I know that word.
Like, I should know it, but I don't think I do.
I believe it's like advisor. I'm checking. Steward or major domo of a medieval great house. Okay, I was in the ballpark.
Or, okay.
But it's an actual like Earth word.
Yeah. Well, yeah, this is all being translated English.
Well, I mean most of it is, but there's
Oh, right. Sorry, yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, we're good. All right. Martha the Sea by the Wavering Dark until the sun falls. Yeah, and that extra bit of name means he's extra important among his people. And now that the introductions are done, perhaps we can finally discuss the murder. Acidity ass.
Have a tail?
It definitely seems tail like. I'm not super clear on where that's coming from, though.
Yeah, in the top panel you can see it too, so I think it is just coming from behind him and just wrapping all the way around.
Yeah. As the report indicated, the victim was one Steven of the Glacier by the Wavering Dark. Na male, age 132, education drone administrator by profession, identified by retinal scans, DNA, and partial bioelectric signature. Ship clan, psi. Partial. Physical integrity is required for a proper BE sig. One of his arms is gone, along with the front of his body. We have enough bite pattern data from the old era when this sort of thing was common to confirm that it's what it looks like. Steven was eaten?
Well, that's not a typical murder method even on our world.
No, it's pretty awesome.
I also just noticed the guy talking in the first panel also has a tail, so I think that's just a standard thing of the Gnaw.
Yeah.
That probably explains the wing we were looking at on the first panel. Maybe that was that guy's tail.
Maybe. And this is sort of an interesting choice where they're not showing us the crime scene, although it sounds like the crime scene is pretty grody. So maybe that's for the best.
Admittedly, if they basically told us it's a partially eaten corpse in an alleyway in the rain, so that probably covers all we need to know, though.
Yeah. And I don't love the holographic effect going on here. Like, I would love for there to be just like a little bit of translucency, but the lighting on it is really cool. And I like what it's doing to the rest of the room.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. I feel like maybe it's trying to sell that this is a different technology from our primitive holograms that have all this glitchiness to them, but it does also feel like these extra bits flickering around, this digital confetti is just obscuring the image, so I see it both ways.
Yeah. There's a interesting little glance away in the bottom panel from Acidity Ass, I notice. And from the Thorn person, so this is apparently pretty horrendous. At doesn't care though. You know, these online people, they just can't stop looking at ISIS beheading videos and all sorts of gross stuff. It's a screwed up generation, these Zoomers.
Well, at least you got the generation name right.
Yeah, well, you know, I gotta find somebody to yell at. So much moisture. But could it have been an accident, Peace Captain? Something that just resembles intentional violence? We are considering all possibilities, Counselor. Let's not dance around it, Peace Captain. I think it's clear that one of my people did this. It is odd, however, that the feeding was not, complete. When one of us did lose control back in the old days, we were usually more efficient. Dramatic
I love
pause.
how everyone just stares at him after that sentence.
Yeah. If it was one of us, we wouldn't have left anything behind. We would have gobbled it up whole.
I appreciate your honesty, but we've got to stare at you dramatically now.
All of that is irrelevant, council members. Why is all of that irrelevant, though?
Next page. Also, whoa, those eyebrows.
Yeah, they're pretty great. This isn't a whodunit. We know who. The suspect is in custody with some of the victims still in her stomach. She's nobody. Could be anybody. The who and the how of it don't really matter. And you know it. The why does. Counselors, you requested a Green Lantern for the city enduring. You knew this was coming. You damn near told me to expect it. So here's the proof that all your guesses were on target. That this murder is just the first death in a brewing epidemic of violence. The question that really matters right now is how do we prevent the next one?
Okay,
So we
that
can see,
answers a bunch of other questions I had about how she's here.
yeah, so we can see that the alien that got had wings and a tail.
Oh, yeah, okay. Maybe the other Nah that are here just have it under their shirts.
Yeah, I think that's what's going on. We seem to be ending a lot of pages with dramatic close-ups on the Green Lantern.
Yeah.
But fortunately, the next page doesn't have that, so that's good. I was worried we were going to start getting into a little bit of a repetitious thing here, but hold up. Wait a minute. I'm guessing you're confused. Well, let's process that a little. In a good narrative, who speaks matters. So does who's being spoken to. Once upon a time, there were three species that evolved on two planets in the same solar system. Lucky. They developed together, helping each other advance and grow. Then along came an empire from elsewhere in the galaxy. Not so lucky that. The empire told the Na that the Ketopli had eaten some of their children, told the Ketopli that the AT-AT had deleted priceless seed data, told the AT-AT, well, you get the idea. We've seen this on Earth. Rwanda, Nazi Germany, presidential elections, a time-tested tactic. Divide and conquer. All right, looks like we're digging into the history of this planet, which is actually like kind of wild if you think about it, because I honestly can't remember the last time I read a Green Lantern comic that was really this patient with establishing the history and just giving you a sense of the culture and the place.
Yeah, like my biggest, to me, the biggest, shall I say, wasted potential with Green Lantern has always been way too much Earth focus, considering the premise should allow you to go to the wackiest corners of the imaginary alien species all over the place.
Yeah.
When instead
And
we just have here's 5 or 6 lanterns all living on Earth 24/7.
well, and when they're not on Earth, it's usually just because they have to go off into space to punch something, and you don't really spend a
Mm,
lot of time like really. It's interesting because they deal with some like pretty weird and exotic stuff, but they have this trope where they treat it as just totally uninteresting and mundane.
exactly, where a bunch of interesting looking aliens show up and they just act exactly like any other superhero.
Right. Yeah, and I suspect that this is actually an example of how bringing in a writer who isn't a comic book writer can be really helpful, because I think Jemison is really thinking of this as a science fiction story. And so she's taking
Yeah.
the language of science fiction novels and bringing that style and approach to this comic book, which I think is really doing good things for it.
Yeah, now that it's framed in that context, this is probably something I've been wanting for a long time and didn't know it.
Yeah.
Speaking of which,
So,
now you can clearly see the wings on all those Nah.
yeah. Looks like things are not going great. Whoa. The people of the trilogy, though, when they get mad, they don't play. That was the problem, as the survivors saw it, getting mad. So they got rid of their anger, along with everything else, all emotion gone. And it worked. The trilogy entered a new golden age, built a city literally from the ashes of their homeworlds.
So
Facial expression.
that's what the broken planet in the Starscape earlier was. Okay.
Yeah. Facial expressions and body language are just how people communicate, but they don't mean the same thing here as what I'm used to. No one in this room feels a thing. Okay. I think I'm going to need to have that elaborated on.
Agreed.
Except me. Counselor at Blaze of Glory, thank you for your offer of a deep info dive. Do you have an update on that? Yes, of course. I hired a few at who've specialized themselves for aggregation and analysis. I gave them one parameter to trace the source of this switch off, whatever it is. Scan communications, security footage, anything. They failed. Failed? Are you kidding? You're a race of search engines. We're a bit more than that, dear, but yes, failed. Whoever's selling this drug avoids acting in recognizable patterns. Analog transactions, maybe? And sweeper scripts to cover their surveillance tracks? All right, this page I think is maybe
Not as
again
amazing as the others.
not put well. I was gonna say not pushing this maybe quite as far because they just have like a drug pill on the hollow. Like that's not that's kind of lazy.
It's got
Although
foreign language subtitles above it.
and the search engine thing is kind of like, well, all right, fine. I do really like the look of just complete exasperation on the lantern's face and just the whole pose in panel 4 though. That's great.
Yeah, I also like how you can see the chair dissolving behind her as she's done with it.
Yeah. There's a lot of great little touches like that. Or maybe the problem is bad search parameters. Everyone knows the at are the ones who designed the emotion exploit. Naturally, an at would know how to circumvent it too and cover their tracks after doing so. The na are the ones who apply the exploit to biologicals. Meat salads. That's what you almost said, right? That's you people's fun little term for us biologicals. I would never use that term. Enough. This posturing is beneath us. Facts. Until you can provide those, Peace Captain, keep your suppositions and prejudices for yourself. And this is what they're like without emotions. Now you see how they destroyed 2 planets. Okay, so I guess the idea is that they isn't so much that they have 0 emotions, but just that their emotions are dialed down.
Yeah, I'm going to assume that's what this is supposed to mean.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you would think that, wouldn't you, meat salad? I'm sorry.
Yeah, sure.
That was uncalled for. I apologize.
Appreciate that it's a slightly different meat term than I'm used to, because usually it's like meat bag or meat sack or something. But
Meat bag is
I have
pretty
never
good.
heard meat salad before, but it makes as much sense as anything else.
Yeah. Oh, wowzers. Another really solid page.
Ooh.
Hey, Red, what's up, buddy? Red Hark thinks meat salad sounds kind of silly. Which, fair.
Well, so does meat sack, but yeah.
Well, so does at. I mean, we've been kind of silly from the jump.
But
I don't know.
Is pushing it.
Yeah, I'm still having a good time. But I really like this page. So we do this the hard way then. If I learn anything more, I'll keep you updated. Counselors, Peace Captain. But Lantern Mullen, where are you going? I'm going to talk to people, starting with a murderer. Wait, there's a moment. I love this page.
Yeah, something about the colors. This whole thing just works.
Yeah. I think part of that is just simply the fact that it's a very effective transition between the very dark blue neon-y stuff that we've been seeing before. And so the push to this is very striking just by comparison.
Yeah.
But it's just, and also like the perspective is absolutely on point in the last panel. And it's being very effectively used by dropping the horizon line down so far as to really give you a sense of just like the scope and scale of the world that she's in. Really,
And I
really
just
solid stuff.
Yeah, and I just love the colors from. I assume this is sunrise that just happened because it was nighttime before.
Right, yeah.
So, like
Yeah,
all of these things are giving off that bright sunlight on one side, not on the other side, color contrast that looks really great.
yeah. And again, there's a lot of very nice little textural touches that probably don't come through, but there's some like very subtle stuff going on the ground that she's walking on to make it kind of feel appropriately gravelly or textured, or like a sidewalk would be. And you also have the building behind her, which has all these like intricate little triangles and squares. And of course, you still got the hex background too, or the hex skyline. Man, I gotta check out Naomi now, just like based on this art alone. Holy cow, this is so good.
Yeah, I think I'm definitely buying and subbing this when we're over with this issue.
Sounds good.
Unless it
There-
suddenly gets really terrible in the last few pages, but that seems unlikely.
yeah. What's gonna happen is that she's gonna get Batman who laughsified, and the comic is just gonna be about her fighting Batman on Earth for after this. Called a twist. And
Would be the
it's a
worst twist.
classic, yeah, it's a classic writer's a writer's trick, if you will. There is a moment every day when the city drops its pretense. I hated this place at first. Too weird, too much. Back home, they say it takes about a year to know if you can handle New York City. A year to feel at home, if you're going to. I'll give you 1 year, and a ring to make your will reality. Like any Green Lantern, but also unlike. There we go. Hello, City Enduring. There's your pretty face. 1 year to test the ring and make your mark. Didn't take anywhere close to a year. Okay, so we're getting some interesting glimpses into how she wound up here. I assume that's going to be expanded on in later issues.
We also have confirmation now that her ring is unusual.
Yeah. And it looks like that she is living on one part of the Dyson sphere too, I guess.
I think this clearly confirms that they are on the hexes of that Dyson partial sphere we saw earlier, and also that the ceiling is pointing towards the star, which is the opposite direction of what I would have guessed.
Right, yeah. So let's see what she thinks about all this. If I didn't know any better, Lantern Mullen, I would guess that you are contemplating world domination. Of our world, anyway. But who knows? Maybe you'd do a better job of running things than we have. I hate bureaucracy, so no. Can't blame you. I'd like to show you something, Lantern Mullen, after you've finished your investigation, of course. Show me what? Later, when we can speak more freely. Oh, that's not ominous. Please, Lantern, I'm aware that you've been granted an exemption from the emotion exploit, but you have nothing to fear from me. Handy little fact, those spiny bits on Na wing fins, venomous. Probably wouldn't kill me, I'm told, but if I did die, it would be like going to sleep. Who said anything about being afraid of you? Never been a very good liar. Of course. Humor me, please. This will be a useful thing for you to know for your investigation and as a newcomer to the city. Now, this would be an example of, I think, the screen tone effect maybe not being well applied.
Are you referring to the left side of the third panel?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, then that's definitely coming through on the stream.
Yeah, that's not
It's a
great.
bit much.
Drop the opacity by 50 and throw a multiply on it or something. That's
Oh god.
Yeah, it's pretty rough.
Oh, that's too much.
Yeah, I would say it's like the one like genuine misfire I've seen visually for this comic so far.
Yeah, that's just. But on another note, I'm intrigued by the first panel showing her funky 70s glasses, whatever they are, coming apart. But then they
Well,
clearly reformed themselves by the end, so now I'm thinking that's a ring construct, maybe?
they're definitely a ring construct, and she was taking them off in the last panel, I think, because she was
Oh, right.
just kind of
Yeah.
hanging out, and she thought she was alone.
Yeah, you're right. I missed that. So she's just reforming them when she hears her. Cool.
I mean, the lanterns wearing masks thing has always been a little bit weird because it makes sense for Hal when he's on Earth, but when he's out in space, I guess I'm not sure why he'd bother. And of course, a lot of the lanterns don't. Guy and John both usually don't wear a mask.
And well, this isn't this isn't exactly a mask either, but
Yeah, I mean, she's not exactly hiding her identity or anything here.
their secret identities in general are kind of weird in a lot of comics.
Yeah, well, I have you heard what they're doing with Superman?
Uh, you mean aging up John to be Superman, or
No.
okay, what then?
Well, let's finish the comic and then we can dig into it. But
Okay.
I'll send you my address and itinerary. See you soon. This man is going to be a goddamn problem. Not running from him. Nope. Just got places to go, things to do. Yep. Shit. I don't know why, but that shit just really jumped out at me. I'm not used to seeing that in my DC comics.
Yeah, normally that would be censored, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And maybe that's because it's young animal. I don't know.
Damn, this is edgy. So maybe
Yeah.
maybe the rule is that like you can't swear in a regular like basic DC comic, right?
Yeah.
But if it's a young animal comic, you can say shit. And if it's a Black Label comic, you can say the F word. And I think that like so oh my god, I was joking, but I think that's actually probably it. Like DC comics are like PG, Young Animal is PG-13, and Black Label is rated R.
And what Wonder Comics are rated G?
Yes, that's my theory.
I I I've got nothing to disprove it with.
Well, it's a working hypothesis. We'll have to keep reading and
I
see.
mean, they'll probably change their mind another 3 months when someone publishes something slightly too racy anyway.
Yeah, I'm just well, I'm not going to start talking about Batman's penis again, but Mullen to see
Everyone wants
Suspect
to talk about it.
94. Sigh. Ma'am, Lantern Mullen, we were told you'd gone to see the council. I did. Oh, went that well, huh? It was fine, Officer Duval, wasn't it? All right. Well, okay, give me a second. I gotta switch over. There we go. Right, ma'am. Pacifier, first grade. Dual of the Sea by the Churning. Was there something you needed, Dual? Oh, uh, just that I am to offer you full assistance and access should you require it. Peace Captain Sizen made it very clear that we're to treat you as an honored guest. Actually, she said you might wreck the platform if we don't. Just here to talk to the suspect, thanks. Well, several of the peace assistants have tried interrogating her, but she's still in her dormancy phase. That's what happens after a Katople eats a lot. So, food coma? What? Food coma. That's what humans call it when... Wait, why are the lights out? That's weird. Hang on. I'll get them... Computer. So, I'm guessing they just lost their suspect.
Or fight scene.
Or fight scene. Or both. Nice little bit of...
hallway back there full of victims.
Yeah. Yeah, which is another one of those nice touches that a lot of artists, I think, probably wouldn't have the time or talent or energy to really hammer out.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought of that, but you're right. The random people in the hallway are way more filled in and detailed than I would normally expect.
Yeah, that's a lot of work.
Especially since half of them are non-humanoid.
Whoa! Lights.
Okay, that's a few stages past the food coma.
Yeah, well, it looks like we got the grisly crime scene that I was crying out for earlier.
Jeez, the chest looks like a Venus flytrap almost. What the hell came out of it?
No, I think that's supposed to be just like what they are like underneath that, right? But
Yeah,
it's
given the circumstances, it's a little hard to say what is their normal appearance and what is because this thing just got mutilated.
yeah, well, I'm guessing it's supposed to be wearing that green stuff on the inside. But yeah, no, that's pretty disturbing. Chunk. Oh, hell no. All right, and it looks like we've got the what are these guys called again? The looks like we got one of them trying to slip out. So we were both right. A murder and a fight. And a nice little bit of blur there too.
I was just thinking that I like that the blur is only there and very clearly there's no blur anywhere else, so that sells the motion.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of blurs in my comics as a rule, but this is, I think, a good execution of that effect.
Yeah.
Lantern? What should I... Get out of my way. To be continued. All right. Well, I think pretty sold. Ah, I was right too. Art and color. Jamal Campbell. So I suspected as much. Yeah, no, I'm pretty impressed. I really enjoyed this. There's a few things here and there that, kind of bothered me a little bit, but for the most part, yeah, it was just nitpicky stuff. For the most part, like, I'm totally on board.
Yeah, and some of it was of the I only noticed this because everything else is so good that
Yeah,
I'm sold. I will just go click the button on this now before I forget about it.
Yeah, this was terrific. I'm really looking forward to the next issue. Oh, right. So I forgot. Superman, though, I guess they're talking about getting rid of his secret identity.
Oh, that. They were going to rename him to just Kent or something, wasn't it?
I don't know from that, but they're, I guess, going to have him come out as being both. They're going to have him say, like, I'm Clark Kent, but I'm also Superman. Like, he's going to do a reveal.
Oh.
That's like a whole thing that Bendis has lined up at the moment, which is kind of weird because, like, they did that storyline like literally a few years ago.
Oh.
back during the whole thing where he was wearing a t-shirt and jeans, they also had it come out that he was Clark Kent and
Oh, the New
Superman.
52 guy, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I haven't read any of the New 52 stuff, only Rebirth and stuff like All Star.
I think this was like a post Rebirth thing, but it was like kind of a little soft reboot that they did during the New 52 period. And I want to say like Greg Pak was involved, but it was okay. But I get the impression that they may actually be making this the status quo, because that was just kind of like a shorter storyline, and I don't even remember how they undid it. But anyway, yeah, good ass comic. This was a nice little surprise. I didn't necessarily go into this with the highest of hopes, but it definitely exceeded my low expectations, and I think would have probably exceeded some fairly high ones too, considering.
That was great.
Yeah, this is probably the best comic I've read in a while. As always, I think from a format standpoint, I'm a little frustrated that we're kind of stopping here, and that this sort of feels very much like a chapter one.
Yeah, I would really like it if comics moved away from this whole one issue a month format and published like complete arcs, as just the trade is the thing that comes out in the first place. But that's just a me thing. I know the industry's not going to go there for a while.
Well, yeah, I guess one thing that I've always kind of wished that they would do is that they would shift to something more like doing uh arcs where they had like one a week and then took a little bit of a longer break. So do 6 issues, like, and then publish it weekly and then take some time off.
Yeah, that's a move in that direction. I could get behind that too.
Yeah, like the House of X, Powers of X miniseries did that, and it really gave the thing a lot of energy to my mind, and helped make it feel like it was like this big, ongoing sort of freight train. And it was also
Yeah,
nice because I could actually remember what had happened last week.
exactly. I feel like a one issue a week, at least there you still have some memory of the previous one that actually feels like it's ongoing, as opposed to it happened, then it stopped, then it happened again, then it stopped, which is what monthly always feels like to me.
Yeah. Well, as always, Ix, thanks for stopping by and hanging. I appreciate it.
Hmm.
You got anything to promote? Got anything that you're really excited about at the moment?
Definitely nothing to promote. Excited
All right.
about? Right now I'm mostly just planning for the holidays. I don't have any other comics I'm looking into in great detail at the moment.
All right. How are you liking Watchmen?
Oh, the show, I'm liking that a lot right now, though. Ironically, that's also a really strong example of I wish they just dumped the whole season on us at once so we could binge it.
Yeah, I'm
A
okay
few of
with
the
the.
episodes suffer a bit from being their own isolated chapters. Like I think the original Watchmen comic also would have if I had to read that one issue a month.
Yeah, I can't imagine reading Watchmen monthly, especially with the delays. But the fifth episode, which I guess you haven't seen yet, is I think probably in my opinion, the strongest one that they've done so far.
Ooh. Yeah, I've definitely
So
got to get to that then.
yeah, I'd go check it out, and I'll be curious to hear what you think.
I'm still two
But
episodes behind on his Dark Materials.
I haven't even started that. Should I?
First episode was really good, and if it's anything like the books, it will stay really good. But yeah,
Okay, I haven't read the book, so
yeah, it's only 3 episodes out, so you can certainly wait a while and then binge later.
all right. Yeah. Well, I might give it a look based on that. But I will talk to you about it next week. How's that sound?
That works. Thanks for having me
All
again.
righty. Yeah, always a pleasure, buddy. Late.
And yes, Red, there is a TV show called His Dark Materials based on the books that BBC is putting out. They're currently on episode 3. I have no idea what its availability is outside the UK, though I obviously get it for free just from being here.
Must be nice.
Yeah, for once, the series that I get for free.
Friggin' Corbin trying to socialize all the TV shows. I'm sick of it.
Well, you guys get to enjoy your, having DC universe, unlike me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so see you next week or whenever.
Alrighty. Later, Gator.
Bye.
Bye. All right, good stuff. I enjoyed it. So I am gonna take a real quick break, and when we come back, I guess we'll do another comic-y comic. So to be continued. I have, and we can talk about it as soon as I get back. I was actually talking about maybe doing like a dedicated Mandalorian episode by episode thing with a friend, but I don't know if that's actually going to happen. But I have a friend who's like super duper into Star Wars, and so uh, anyway. But yeah, I've seen the first two eps, and to be continued. Hey. All right, where were we? Oh, yes. Okay, I remember. I have been watching The Mandalorian. I have been enjoying it a fair amount. I am sort of surprised that it's only going to be like 8 episodes, and it feels very strange to me too, because like this last episode was only about half an hour. But all things considered, I guess I would rather have less stuff that is of higher quality than to stretch it out to like 13 episodes at an hour like the Netflix shows do. So if this is what it takes to keep the quality coming, that's fine. I don't know. Like I feel like we're not really far enough in for me to really say whether or not this is actually going to be like really great or not. Yeah, no, it's fun. I'm a little honestly. I'm like a Star Wars fan from like back in the day, and I'm a little bit burned out on some of the Force stuff. Like I feel like as Star Wars has continued, it's become more and more and more about the Jedi, whereas like the Jedi are an interesting thing in A New Hope, but they're not like this overwhelming presence that every single story revolves around 100%. And so I was a little bummed to see the swerve that happened with episode 2, but I am hoping that we won't like get bogged down in endless, Jedi bullshit. And as long as they steer clear of that, I guess I'm fine with it. Let me think. Oh yeah, the glimpses that we've been getting into the Mandalorian culture is also kind of interesting. It's kind of wild too, because like I said, I'm like a really, really, really old school Star Wars guy, and I was reading the Star Wars stuff back during the days of the Legends continuity. So like the Thrawn trilogy, I read that when it actually came out, and I have a copy of A Guide to the Star Wars Universe, second edition, and it's really fascinating because the this book came out in 1994, and the only thing that it actually says about the Mandalorians, it has like one line, and that line is that they fought the Jedi during the Clone Wars but were defeated, and that's like it. That's like the whole entry on Mandalorians, which is wild. I actually have never read the Karen Travis books. I've heard some good things. I mean, I've also heard some bad things, but um, I might actually check it out. Although a lot of the Karen Travis stuff, I guess, isn't in continuity anymore, because basically when they ushered in the new continuity stuff, they basically changed it so that the Mandalorians have been at peace for several hundred years, which was definitely not the case for the story before that. But I don't really care about that stuff as long as they're telling good stories now. If they want to get a little bit, sloppy with the stuff that came before, I guess that's fine with me. Yeah, it's a treasured part of my library. It's probably one of the oldest books that I own, in terms of, not in terms of how old the book is, but in terms of like how long it has been in my possession. There's not a lot of books that I've owned for longer. My dad read a lot of comics, including Star Wars comics, and gave me a lot of stuff I haven't went through in years. Yeah. The old Marvel comics are kind of interesting. They're like incredibly bad, but just in terms of getting another look at what Star Wars used to be, and the stories that they were telling in that universe is kind of fascinating. But let's do another comic. Let's see. What would be? Well, we've been reading Batman on stream for so long. I feel like we kind of have to bite the bullet and see this through. And it's got Janin on art, which is nice. So let me go ahead and update the stream title. Ding. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna stop and restart real quick. So I will be right back.